11 episodes in, we finally get a Rian episode, with her out on a date. The man she's with proposing to her, only for her to reject him because the diamond's too small. Elsewhere, a man enters the establishment Paradise, which I presume is a pun, with him making a beeline for the club's matron, which is a shape-shifting horror that eats men as they lust after her and her minions.
Now Oikawa, formerly Celestia of Go Onjure, again? She played a Horror of the Week in Chapter of the Black Wolf. Hell, the previous one had the same modus operandi as this one.
I mean, I know Garo tends to cast a lot of AV actresses as the throwaway eye candy when they need women for scenes in places like this. And yeah, she eats him. Agri is shown going on a trip for parts to make their Mado horror detector. They're finally bothering to do that. While Rian takes the diamond and transmutes it into a diamond bullet, complaining about her boyfriend and feeling she's just leading him on.
Joke's on you, I've seen Goldstorm!
And her conduct comes back to bite her, as her boyfriend is in turn given an invite to Paradise through proxy of Anho. This oddity of the man shrugging her off to go, making her follow him, and find her in the den of horrors, while he sees... Am
I your kind of woman?
Oh, God, yes.
Really? 'Cause Miki Nanri's kind of hot.
The effect entrances him, turning him into a jerk, but admittedly him calling Rian a gold digger is pretty damn on point with how she views men as disposable. Hell, Takeru treats the woman he beds with more respect. And his subplot with Rui has him constantly showing compassion to the girl they stole the memories of her family from. Rian takes this calling out of her character flaw bad, her fury cleanly showing through, and her choosing to vent to Ryuga, in which she admits that her being a priest, she didn't do it for herself, she only did it to prove those who said she couldn't wrong.
This entire group was made up of those who shouldn't have their positions, isn't it?
Though even that ends up contradicted by the final episode of the series, which shows Rian as a child be taken in by Barai, and show all on her own her wanting to be a priest. And with Barai's training early as a child, by the time she actually went to Kantai to enter the priest training camp there, she utterly crushed every other trainee with her skill and ability.
Or this could have been something born of her experiences while there that turned her into the princess of manipulation and snark she is in this show. The later finale does end up feeling kind of retconny.
This instead is showing Rian more suffers from intimacy issues in the case of interacting with others from the forced isolation she suffered, Ryuga reading that by touching her headdress and scanning her experiences from that.
Kind of a big breach in privacy to do that, dude. And this is the only time his Esper powers actually have a point in bridging the divide between two people.
Barai sends them to dismantle the place, entering undercover. Is it hard-boiled enough for you? They confront the head horror, who tries the same mind game she does with her other patrons in reading Rian's deepest desires, recognizing the void she's longing to fill within her.
Again, Goldstorm.
Though oddly, she also sees the same void in Ryuga, because he's lost his family all as well.
On your own, with someone you can trust on your side, either works.
Though the horror's words linger on in Rian's mind, admitting she probably should do something, make some changes in her life to resolve that void, and fill it with something grand.
Not like that!
But Ryuga turns her down, as they still barely know each other, and a lasting relationship takes time. Which ironically mirrors the episode's subplot with Takeru, as he considers asking Rui out to try and become someone important to her, replace the happiness they've unintentionally stolen with something more than just the job she has. Rivera continues her slander of Ryuga's character in another expose.
Yeah, still not seeing her differently than any conservative news organization. More tame, actually, as she's just putting a spin on things that actually happened instead of outright lying to people.
With Rian infiltrating her news organization, them suspecting, rightfully, that she's a Mado whore. And they really need to find one, as their Mado whore detector is almost ready. It's just needing the flesh of one, and the component Augury is bringing back to be usable.
One wonders why they just didn't get one pulled from the Senate archives, as it'd be foolish for them to have built one before that worked to know this process and just gotten rid of it. But considering the upkeep the Order's devices have shown to need, any in storage might have been out of power. Though, this does end up answering a lingering question I had from the last series. How do Makai priests make things out of horror corpses when the way they kill and dismember horrors destroys their bodies?
However, this begins to go bad, as Rivera quickly grows suspicious of Rian, just as she finds a vial in Rivera's things that contains the blue goop Enho was seen with on her lips when she was turned. It identified as a concentrated human soul.
We've got to tell them! Silent Blue is people!
This is the smoking gun to Rivera being a horror, but before she can get out, Rivera confronts Rian on live television, on suddenly turning her into a hostage to draw her companions in, gloating all the while about how her coverage is key to keeping the horrors undercover.
この町の愚民どもは私を信じ、私の話のすべてを真実だと疑わない。
Again, less evil than the conservative news, where several correspondents have straight up admitted to lying to their viewer base just for the money. That is not a joke. At least the horrors are trying to keep their prey unawares they're being hunted.
The two have a pretty good fight between them before Ryuga shows up, too, tearing down the idea of how justice falters in the face of truthiness, and calling Yasuto, who she ate, a fool, before shooting Ryuga. And that was all caught on film.
This is one of the best moments in the series, too, as the all-too-human aspects of the Mado horrors, in this moment, threatens to topple their entire operation. A normal horror has no need for pride. It doesn't need to gloat or assert an arrogant superiority. They admittedly play with their food, but it's all about the hunt and lure through their esoteric methods.
But because Rivera followed the human impulse to dominate and showboat, now that all crumbles. Ryuga's anonymity restored with his supposed death, Rivera discredited and forced on the run due to murdering a man in cold blood.
I presume the group ran enough footage to show how they were outright framing Ryuga to not make it seem applicable for a self-defense plea.
And to add to the "ya done fucked up," Ryuga manages to sever Rivera's silver tongue, allowing their enemy's greatest propaganda weapon to now be repurposed to speak the identity of the hidden Mado horrors, revealing 15 in total still exist within the city. With this knowledge, the team began operations to isolate, injure, and take out the assorted corrupted humans in quick succession, each severely taxing Ryuga's stamina due to the repeated gold waves, leaving him racked in pain. Though from this, we do get an excellent fight scene with Yoshinori Okamoto, a veteran stunt actor from Super Sentai's early days, who you might also recognize as Geki's dad from Zyuranger. However, this actually proves itself to be Augury's sole character development episode, finding himself the weak link in these operations, as his arrows have shown themselves to be completely useless at even impeding the Mado horrors, when even Rian's bullets do that.
Again, reasserting my thing from earlier about how I'm baffled by Augury's arrows lacking any type of magical or horror-injuring properties.
To that end, he decides the answer is no, not getting Burai or Rian's assistance and giving them some type of special ability.
Hawkeye and Green Arrow could kick this guy's ass in an archery contest due to their trick arrows, to not even get into Counter Guardian Emiya.
But just training himself so as to make his arrows be able to pierce thicker armor, thinking that is the sole problem, and not the fact that horrors have long shown themselves as resistant to mundane weapons. Of course, there's only so much penetrating power you can get from drawing back a bowstring, so Agri's training proves itself fruitless. Ryuga, when finding him training, once more shows himself to be a dumbass by not understanding the entire basis and freaking point of the exercise by just picking up a bunch of them and thrusting them at a rock to break it.
Even though that entire bundle literally has only a fraction of the applied force any of Agri's single shots would have had, and dispersing it over a larger area means that force would only further be diluted into far less penetrating power, which is what Agri was trying to train to improve. Even though he can't, as there's an actual limit to an arrow's capacity to pierce through an enemy's body. This episode's premise is really damn stupid.
No, seriously, I looked this up. The penetration ability is tied to an arrow's weight and the draw strength of the bow that sends it flying. To get more penetration, you need to send a heavier arrow at someone, as though it travels slower, it retains more of its kinetic energy on impact due to its weight resisting the dispersion of its inertia like a lighter arrow would. Training wouldn't help that. So in this instance, as much as Ryuga's being a dumbass by missing the point of the exercise, Agri is also being a dumbass by misunderstanding a basic tenet of archery, which is in complete conflict with his backstory as a prestigious and distinguished archer of the Kusugami clan. Who should know all of this?
And I only really bring this all up as, again, Agri's arrows are not presented to consistently be magic, which would hand-wave this detail. And in lieu of some fantasy element, real-world rules would apply.
Nonetheless, Ryuga's actions offend Agri, as he takes pride in his talents, and resorting to brute force is in complete contradiction to his sense of self. After breaking up the fight, Rian presents her findings about the soul vials. They're essentially rationed so horrors don't need to go out hunting every night and can more easily keep their cover. But by that proxy, it means someone needs to be making them, as this is not normal. They track the shipments back to Kaneshiro Foods, go figure, which Ryuga and Agri infiltrate, Agri repeatedly having to stop Ryuga from blowing their cover. Inside, they and the others find a crate ready to ship, stuffed full of the vials, and all of them containing human souls.
Useless ass psychic powers!
Rian using her magic to manifest the last moments of the victims, amongst them the 3 missing Suzakis. Meaning outside of that one horror's real estate food scheme, that entire district must be an immigrant farm, and that horror's activity only a cover for the true malevolence of it. That this group missed in its entirety by that distraction. And as stoic and detached as Agri can be, even this is his line. He can't be detached from this, suggesting they screw stealth and kill them all. They set the facility ablaze, drawing the horrors to them, and the Mado going after the souls they're saving by stealing the crate. It engages Agri specifically, who finds again his arrow is worthless, and just getting thrashed with how he's forced to face it in hand-to-hand. Despite, his bow having a bladed end made specifically for the instances where he's too close to shoot things.
Now that begs the question of why his training in archery didn't include that, since his school of archery was designed specifically to take advantage of his Makai weapon.
Thus, Agri repeats Ryuga's earlier dumbass piercing attack, which really should pierce nothing, allowing Ryuga to absorb the gold waves and kill another Mado. The group celebrating their second real victory in this crisis by burning the crate with Mado flames to purify the souls and send the victims all off into the afterlife. Closure for all those they could not save, including Rui's family. The group continued the hunt for the Mado horrors. The next one found hiding himself in a graveyard. and cursed by magic into a mute, which Rian reverses. The man introducing himself as Hyena.
お前さんガロだったのかよ。ガロはもうとっくの昔にいなくなったって聞いてるぜ。
Yeah, he got sucked into a portal torn in time and thrown into the far future where evil is law.
Hyena was silenced and sent on the run to keep what he knew hidden, and despite his monstrous status, shows gratitude to his hunters by being very open about what he knows, mainly as he hasn't had a decent meal in years, surviving solely on the remnants of souls left among the rotting corpses in this cemetery.
Doesn't Japan practice cremation pretty heavily? I mean, this seems like kind of an oddity. Though, from the horror perspective, this is probably their equivalent to vegan.
But he's being amicable, as Hyena thinks they can change him back into being a human, which shocks them all at the possibility. But as they run his identity through the SG database, which Rian is revealed she can just magic her way into...
Magic in this setting does not work that way. At least not in the way they magic up the interface.
Holes start to appear in his story, not helped by... Oh, this guy is smart. But then he plays his ace. Intimate knowledge of Zedam and its seeds.
ガロのくせに何にも知らねえんだな。
He describes this being as the Massacre General, infesting other horrors with his seeds so they would all do his bidding. Even the Makai Knights, if callous, could fall under its sway, but eventually its armies were beaten back.
How is a big question, considering of the 3 knights here, only Garo can kill any of the Mado horrors.
And Zedam itself broken into pieces and sealed securely to prevent any chance of a cycle of remanifestation like other horrors possess. And Vul City just happens to have been built on top of the ruins to the seal containing Zedam's head and consciousness.
毎日女神像から流れるこの調べはゼドメへのレクイエムってわけだ。
Hyena then sends them after who he says is the singer, an opera star that, coincidentally, had been murdered by her lover and sealed in a violin. They're then led to take the violin's bow and put it in a stone, but it just acts as a gate to summon more horrors to keep Augury and Takeru busy, as Hyena springs his real trap and restrains Ryuga, who was the dumbass that entertained even listening to this guy all this time, even as Hyena toyed with him. For Hyena is Kensei Kaneshiro, having decided, upon getting his voice back, to try and get back into his master's good graces with the Golden Knight as a gift, though Ryuga finally realized why Kensei was silenced to begin with.
誰がお前みたいな嘘つきを信用するかよ。お前はそいつに見切られ、捨てられたんだ。
And then in a moment that is actually kind of clever if you forget the surprise they showed at the possibility of returning Mado horrors to humans, he tricks Kensei into believing there is a way to return to being human, and it involves his sword, which, upon being cut, causes Kensei to release a gold wave which frees Ryuga, and thus follow up on his promise. The only escape is death.
奴は自分の息子までホラーにしちまったってことかよ。
A shocking revelation to be followed up on as the series enters its endgame. Too bad they don't take advantage of that in the next part, as episode 15 is this entry's clip show.
Now, Garo usually does at least one clip show per 20-plus episode series. I get that. And usually they can be skipped over without losing anything. However, this one is annoying due to its wraparound segments acting as character exposition and the deepening relationship between Ryuga and Rian, as he goes on a walkout with her to a hill overlooking Vul City to build a grave marker for his mother, thinking back on her and his origins as a knight, which answers, as I showcased earlier, how the hell he even got the sword and armor despite not being worthy of them.
This isn't exactly a problem in and of itself, and it's a deepening of the characters that was sorely needed, but it's done as part of a clip show. No one watches the clip show of a series anymore. Even Toei, when they end up making them, usually slot them to show up at a time of year when no one's watching anyways to most efficiently use their budget for the best returns.
And it's only made worse when these plot-relevant details only begin to emerge very late into the episode, after people would have left. The only service a clip show episode would serve at this point is as filler to give the audience a break from the high tension of the current situation, but they've needed that for some time in the material, but it's not shown up.
And you see, here's the third point on my problem with Yami wa Terasumono. The filler episodes suck.
As I've mentioned before in both my vlogs and formal scripted reviews of this series, the strongest storytelling in the Garo media comes not from its main storyline episodes, but from its one-off filler. Even Keita Amamiya has admitted their superiority to the main storyline, as there has been issues of them ending up poorly developed to their culmination, even when there is a good climax built to in series. The filler episodes, however, are where the staff are at their most creative for the series, pun intended, horror elements that really presents the merits of the material.
And in comparison, most of Garo's movies have been really good due to them making the best of their run length, as they don't have the time in them for divergences, so have to give their all for the main story and making that the most interesting thing. The reverse is usually true for the main show.
Unsurprisingly, this is a similar reason to what's wrong with Garo Hono no Kokuin. And yeah, you do see a lot of the same damn problems committed the same damn way in both shows, in that its main story is dumb, and the filler horror hunting doesn't make up for that.
I'll have a larger spiel on that if I ever get around to reviewing that anime. I can't wait to describe all the ways Funimation changing Makai Priest into Makai Alchemist was ridiculously stupid and undermines the series' story, since that entry is about a holy war turning a kingdom against their saintly paladins. But to be more clear, it's not so much that the filler episodes are terrible, but more that there are no filler episodes at all.
With the exception to the expected mid-season clip show and the final episode that is actually a prequel for the entry focused on Burai, every single episode feeds directly into the main story arc with how each of them either shifts the status quo, or affects a character or ongoing plotline, which is then followed up on, either in the next episode or down the line. Even the ones you think might be filler, such as the one with Shun and his music, and then the one with Hiroki and his horror teacher, do fit the larger story arc as they're built on or show consequences to actions in them.
I cite those two together as at the beginning of Hiroki's episode, he is listening to Shun's song, Bright Hope, after the music producers followed through with actually making it and distributing it. Ergo, earlier actions having relevance later.
Normally, filler episodes, as I quantify them, do things for the show that expands on or helps develop the character that is made the focus of them, but in a situation that ultimately is superfluous to the main storyline for the show. Why Garo's filler episodes are so good, then, is simply from the monsters of the week invoking a very interesting and appealing setting and situation, on top of the aforementioned creativity allotted to each creature to make it a threat. But Yami wa Terasumono doesn't have any of that, in part due to its stylization removing those elements, so it's solely reliant on the main storyline, which isn't as effective on making us care about the cast since it's amidst so many other things happening that may supersede it, and a lot of the episodes being crowded.
And that weakness is felt because Takeru and Aguri seem like they're barely there much of the time, and their subplots aren't given the attention they needed to develop or show them individually as skilled and dynamic individuals. To the point you could have probably condensed the two into one character, as I've said. They're almost always crowded out and overshadowed by Ryuga and Rian, which is not unfair as title-designated protagonist and series heroine, you expect it, but the prior shows balanced this a lot better with Rei. Makai no Hana did more right by Crow with how they treated him like a less experienced co-worker seeking to improve himself beside Raiga, and Goldstorm made Daigo and Gald's involvement tie into the main story so their development/exploration wasn't shoved to the side.
Hell, for the most part, Aguri has no character arc, while Takeru's is all solely tied to Rui. And while Takeru does show drastic change from his starting self, they're never allowed any significant spotlight, always overshadowed by Ryuga and Rian. And that's most critically the problem with this episode. It wants Murav the chance for this subplot to play in the background, while Aguri and Takeru for once could have gotten the focus in an episode.
Not help that 2 episodes down, we have another clip show. Yeah, that one is far better, but you should not have 2 clip shows in a 26-episode series.
From the remains of the Mado horrors they've slain, Barai's managed to recover enough material to convert them into soul metal.
Yeah, this was the other big retcon/lore expansion this series gave us. The reason Saddam's sealed like he is his seeds can be harvested and developed into soul metal for use in the construction of Makai artifacts and armor, which kind of conflicts with what I said in the first Garo review I did about the cannot make more thing, despite them not having made more in a long time due to the soul metal involved in their make.
The way the priests do this, as Zaruba later explains, is through a ritual involving female priests that take the seeds into themselves, from which are grown a new full plant, which is what the soul metal is then harvested from. While it inflicts the priests with pain, it's overall a safe process as long as it goes to plan. But insert one of those plants into someone? Yeah, that's where you get your Mado horrors.
Now, some have said this outwardly conflicts with the factors of the Makai armors being defined by the imagination and will of humanity, and also Gajari's part in helping ancient priests forge the armors.
Personally, I take the viewpoint that Gajari helped them find the way to purify Zedam's seeds into the raw materials, as this does also inform other factors. Zedam's seeds are shown to infest their victims and supersedes their own bodies and self, making them into horrors. And when the time limit of an armor's use is hit, the armor then begins to devour and turn them into a super horror monster. And with the detail about a Mado horror being stronger the more powerful the host is, well, what's stronger to possess and take hold of than a fully armored Makai knight?
Plus, the imagination serving as the foundation for form isn't that irregular. As the weaker a horror is, the more generic its appearance, while the stronger ones all have unique, detailed forms to them. And that is paralleled in the generic knight armors we saw used unmasked to fight Ganon last year, while our protagonists have a more defined or distinguished armor. Stronger armor, the more distinct it is, and in the series, Garo itself is strived towards as the ideal of humanity's hope.
Hell, the tale of Zedam, passed down, could have served as Leo and Sigma's inspiration for their Goryus built out of lesser horrors. So yeah, even with the now resultant plot hole of why they don't regularly farm Zedam's seeds to make more Makai armors, this isn't a bad lore expansion. But nonetheless, this concerns Barai, as it's a clear showing of Zedam's seal weakening. Enho is shown at a press conference showcasing the SG's new weapon.
フィストボムです。で、
Okay, really? What use is that for urban pacification?
面倒なものを作る。
ほんとお相手も大変ね。
At this event, however, Kensui Kaneshiro makes a very special appearance, which directly connects the man to their enemies, with Sonshi being his retainer, pushing his wheelchair around. As the meeting breaks up, Enho calls out Rian, asking about Ryuga, which is kind of a tip-off, as Rian has made no mention to her about her companions. Nor has Ryuga outwardly referred to the SG head that keeps dogging him. Up until this point, the two's relation to this common woman has been presented as neither knowing the other's met her. But Rian takes this to mean she's actually their ally, and shows her the Mado horror detector. When this incites Enho's ire, Rian picks up on something being wrong, and after Enho fails to remember a phrase she used to describe herself before...
嘘。
だからやめろと言った。
いつからなの？
When she went out drinking. You missed that one, Rian.
But Enho has been ordered to not kill Rian, thus lets her go, leaving Rian in shock that another person she's let in hurt her in the end. She reports this revelation to the others, Zaruba revealing the order aspect has to do with them being subservient to the one who inserts the plants into them, which is how their will is subjugated into their horrors selves. And consequently, the victims can't survive without the connection to their master. In the event things start to go wrong, Barai shows Rian how to command a Lago.
Which she never does.
while the others discover the facility in which Kensui is being held, preparing an assault in hopes they can just end this in one fell swoop. It goes badly. Rian is the one to confront Enho, trying in a vain attempt to reason with her and find some aspect of humanity buried under the horror. But really, from the fight that results, Enho should know better than to bring a knife to a gunfight.
First legitimately creepy thing all season.
Also, the Terminator called. They want their Killbot back. Ryuga and Burai enter the facility and are greeted by Sanshi, Burai recognizing him as a former Makai Knight.
Every series. Every series!
But Rian's faltering against Enho calls Ryuga away, allowing us to finally clearly see Enho's Madou horror form. That looks kind of dumb. With Rian on the sidelines lamenting how much she wants there to be a way for them to undo this, but there isn't. Once one has become a horror, the change is irreversible. The only escape is death. And her asking Ryu to spare her for now as the fight reaches its climax only enables her in the end to kill more victims. As Burai was left alone, Sanshi's superior skill leaves the Elder Priest broken and near death, his warnings of Zedam's seal coming undone falling on deaf ears. Not because Kensui was ignoring them all throughout this, but the fact that true mastermind is in another castle. They have been played from the beginning.
統制だ。我が息子、金城統制がホラーを作り。
Oh my god! Rekka! Your father is evil! Wait.
Yeah, I did not see this coming at all, but it makes perfect sense in hindsight, especially with how they spend the next episode fully laying out his perspective of this whole conflict.
Though personally my headcanon is Shinji's antics finally drove him crazy.
Ohio.
Shinji.
And was buried in a shallow grave where they'd never find the body. Still, this all makes a hell of a lot more sense and is a better seated twist than the Sigma is Koga's childhood teammate reveal from Makai Senki, where its tip-off is just one misreadable scene. Granted, this episode is heavily harmed by them just having done a clip show 2 episodes ago. If you're going to have a clip-heavy bottle show to represent the clues to Tosei's nefariousness, then why do one earlier? Hell, why not have the clip show reminder exposition tied into this one? So it's properly the series recap and exposition on its main antagonist right before you hit the true endgame.
But yeah, this clip show is far better executed as it presents the series' events up until now from Tosei's perspective. So you see lingering oddities and weird dialogue choices in entirely new lights. When Tosei and Enho shared a drink after their horror encounter, there wasn't a second drink. Sanshi knocked her out, and the glass was set down in a second spot while they turned her. The second ring, a seated clue. And the reason they even took her? She was driven into their arms amidst a plan to get to Ryuga. Much of this series' story being an orchestrated set of schemes to get Ryuga to drop his guard so they could implant him and make the most prestigious Makai Knights into the most powerful Madou horror of all. But every time they try, they'd fail for one reason or another, making the entire series of events now read differently than their prior interpretation without conflicting with a single thing in the story.
I may not be engaged with this series, but goddamn is that not magnificent storytelling.
The only reason Ryuga's lasted up until now, though, is due to the gold waves both strengthening and weakening him, Tosei deciding to wait and instead smear his name to isolate him, as Tosei thought he could just rebuild his army of Madou minions after taking him over. only for that to piece by piece backfire, as with Rivera's tongue, they've rooted out most of the operation that had before left him the unknown king of his father's empire.
Honestly, though, I think this makes Tosei the best villain in the franchise to date, as he actually achieved most of his goals before the Makai Knights even got involved, as opposed to the others where a step in even realizing their plan is fundamentally flawed, and usually where they get screwed over from foolishly trusting an eldritch abomination they think they can control. Tosei? The dude didn't even need to wake up Zidam to get what he wanted.
Or rather, he already got what he really wanted out of all of this. As said, Tosei is the bastard offspring of Kensui and a one-night stand. And all this has been set up as one long revenge scheme set to corrupt and take power over his father's utopia, as Kensui did have good intentions in his city's design, and he's already done that. But with his identity outed, he just decides to step up and eliminate the sources of his grief, beginning a massacre of his extended family.
どうかしたんですか？
食事の時間です。
いただきます。もう大丈夫です。すぐに終わります。安心しろ。すぐに終わる。
All with it culminating in him tearing down his father with the revelation of how he's destroyed the man's life's work, simply for the sin of rejecting him as the offspring of someone Tosei believes his father raped.
登勢許せ。
食え。おやすみ、お父さん。
And to add to the "we're so screwed," with Tosei back in full control of the city, he blames all of the murders on Ryuga and his compatriots.
Once again showing how outing your identity, a really bad decision, Ryuga.